When I first met him, it was good. He was my first proper boyfriend, so it's kind of movie-ish. He properly turned into a different person about 3 months into the relationship. He would call me a bitch, and he'd call me ugly, and he'd call me fat, and he'd call me a slut. He started to push me and pull me, and he started to hit me really, like burn me with lighters, and then it got on to like hitting, punching, slapping. He told me that I couldn't go back home. He took away my phone, so I could, even if I wanted to go back, I couldn't call anyone. I had no money for a train ticket. I felt isolated. I felt completely alone. I just woke up one day and I just felt different. I just knew that if I didn't leave, then it was going to end up in a really bad way. I didn't know if he was going to kill me or what was going to happen. The day I did escape, I didn't take anything with me. I just got out of there. And I went to the council. When they first offered me housing, they offered me a bed and breakfast which was on the same road as my ex-boyfriend's house. I had to move altogether 7 times. I went to certain hostels more than once, but I moved altogether 7 times. Every time that I've moved, he's found me. In one of my hostels, he showed up, he forced his way in, and he threw a microwave at my head. I went unconscious, and I was probably unconscious for a couple of minutes, not very long, but enough to wake up, and I was on the other side of the room, and he was just stamping all over me, on my head, on my body, and then I kept going in and out of consciousness. The nurse said that she was going to have to contact the police, and I told her that I didn't want her to. I said that I just wanted to go home, and the police turned up anyway. They said that they was going to go to his address and find him, and if they found him, arrest him, but they didn't find him, and that was the end of it.
Did the police offer you any other help, like counselling, social services?
No, they never offered me anything. The police didn't offer me any sort of other help. I was never offered a refuge.
Did you even know about it?
I didn't even know what a refuge was until now. I didn't know what a refuge was. Some of the hostels that I stayed in were really disgusting. There were drug needles, heroin needles and stuff in the bathrooms. I was living at one point in between a crackhead and a prostitute. You're only supposed to live in emergency accommodation, which is a bed and breakfast, for 6 months, and I've been there for nearly 3 years. When all this happened to me, I felt very alone. I didn't realise how common my experience was. I want to know what can be done to help teenagers like me. I've come to meet a girl who was in a same-sex relationship. She felt so trapped by the abuse that she ended up harming herself.
No. You're right. Oh.
I started cutting myself. I drank bleach at a point where me and my ex-girlfriend, we had the argument, and I drank bleach. So I thought, that's gonna wash away my problems. Bleach burns. That's gonna wash away my problems. So I took the bleach and I got sent to hospital.
In one incident, Amani was threatened at knife point by her girlfriend, but she didn't want the police to be involved.
I just felt like it wasn't necessary, it wasn't relevant for police to be involved. It caused more drama.
I feel like
I personally don't like police.
Yeah, there's a lack of trust for the police.
Yeah.
Unlike Amani, eventually after months of abuse, I did get the police involved. I called the police at least 15 times. I wanted them to help me protect myself from my ex-boyfriend. I didn't want to press charges because I was too scared, but now I want to know why nothing was done. The Chief Constable in charge of domestic abuse nationally has agreed to meet me. I called the police about 20 times, but he only got arrested once and he was held in a cell overnight, but then he was released the next morning. But since that, nothing's happened. Do you think that the police take domestic violence seriously when it's a case of a 16-year-old boy hitting a 16-year-old girl?
I think, Taylah, as your story shows, is that we've got an awful lot of work to do in relation to getting police officers to understand that actually young people are in relationships at a lot younger age, and to understand that this is not acceptable, whatever the age. And that's the work that I'm doing right the way across the police service in England and Wales, to actually get a training programme in place.
Sometimes the police asked me in front of my ex-boyfriend what I wanted to do, if I wanted to press charges. I didn't want to say anything in front of my ex-boyfriend, obviously. It's a really awkward situation. Yeah. Do you not think it's wrong to ask the victim that question in front of the abuser?
I do. You know, it's just, for me, that's sort of basic common sense, that you wouldn't ask somebody such a question in front of someone else, because what else can they sort of say? Even
if I didn't want to press charges, isn't it the case that the police are supposed to pursue the investigation anyway?
Yes, they are, because you've made an allegation of crime. Actually, you've made an allegation against somebody which is serious. We know from the evidence base, and the training tells us, that actually unless we respond, then quite often people become repeat victims. We know that
Carmel told me about some new policies the police are working on.
We're doing work with the Home Office to propose that we reduce the common definition of domestic abuse to also include young people of right down to the age of 16. We're piloting a thing called domestic violence protection orders, which removes the individual, the perpetrator, from the home, which enables proper safety planning and victim to make choices over a period of time.
The government says it's spending £28 million on domestic violence services, but in the last year they've been big cuts by local authorities. How's the government going to help people like me when services are being cut? I'm here at the House of Commons to talk to the Minister, Len Featherstone. I basically just want to talk to her about my experiences of domestic violence and how herself and the government are going to try and work together to prevent it happening to other young women. At the moment, I'm really nervous, but hopefully when I get in there, my nerves will just turn into excitement and it will go well. Do you recognise that there have been cuts, and do you expect that there'll be more?
You know, obviously, this government, the coalition, was left with the biggest deficit since peacetime Britain, since the war. So yes, there have been government cuts, but as I said, we've ring-fenced 28 million of Home Office funding, but over 10 million of Ministry of Justice funding to support services, to send out a message to local authorities who actually do most of the funding to the violence against women charities and support services, to say don't cut this is a vulnerable sector.
Women's Aid estimated that refugees will face 70% cuts. Do you think cutting the number of refugees is going to help people like me?
Well, of course not. And as I've said several times, the government's message is to ring-fence our own spending, to set an example. I mean, it's never been done in the Home Office before. Never ring-fence that amount of money to say, this is really important because girls like you are so vulnerable. So I'm really sorry that there is hard times going on, but it's not just the government. We've all got to play our part in this, local authorities included.
Whoever's responsible for providing support for girls in abusive relationships, for some, help comes too late.
This is Cassie. We were friends in Germany. And here she is again, cheeky smile.
Jennifer's daughter Cassandra was killed by her ex-boyfriend, but it took 7 years to bring him to justice, and only after he attempted to murder another girlfriend.
Her death has actually destroyed me as a person, as a mum. The impact it has on her sisters and on her friends, and on the community.
Now Jennifer runs the Cassandra Learning Centre, helping other girls just like me.
And what do you feel when you meet someone like me that was in a similar situation to your daughter?
My immediate feelings is to smother you with everything a mother would do to protect you, and to give you all the information that I can to keep you safe, just to make sure you don't go through that hurt, that pain. You look as if you're going to cry.
Sorry.
Okay, let me love you. It's okay, it's okay. You're alive, you're alive, okay?
What shocked me making the film was how common what I went through is, and what really shocked me is how many girls and women end up dead. I think that Jennifer's a really amazing woman. When her daughter Cassandra died, she could have just sort of given up, but instead she used her knowledge and her grief really to help other people just like me. I appreciated meeting the minister, and I appreciated meeting the police as well. I just hope that everything they promise they can kind of pull through with, because I think that it will really help people in the future so that no one has to go through what I went through.